And to begin, I'd like you to please simply bring your awareness to the exhalation of your breath. And very gently, very, very gently, allow your exhalation to be just a bit longer and a bit more pronounced than your inhalation. Please feel free to experiment with pausing briefly at the bottom of each exhalation. This meditation technique will allow both your physical body and your mind to start to settle and rest, to become quiet and still. This morning's meditation is on patient acceptance, the perfection of patience. When you encounter a situation that you find undesirable, you have two choices. You can resist or you can accept. Resisting what is will perpetuate your suffering. Accepting what is will free you from your suffering. It is important to recognize that patience is not gritting your teeth and putting up with something. Patience is a mind that wholeheartedly accepts whatever arises, having abandoned the notion that things should be other than what they are. Please know this truth about patient acceptance. If you perfect your practice of patient acceptance, you will never suffer again in this lifetime. So for now, I'd like you to please just rest in acceptance. No analysis is necessary. There's nothing to figure out. Just rest in acceptance and very gently become increasingly familiar with it. a quick path to perfecting your practice of patient acceptance is surrendering. Surrender to the fact that you cannot control the world around you. You cannot control external situations. You can't control other people's behavior. You can't control how other people think and feel. The inescapable fact is that the only phenomenon you have the potential to be able to control is your own mind. And that's all you need to be able to control in order to experience lasting inner peace. So, for the last few moments of our meditation this morning, I'd like you to please just rest in surrender. Here again, no analysis is necessary. There's nothing to figure out. Nothing needs to be added. Just rest and become increasingly familiar with surrender. Now, very gently, very, very gently, please allow your consciousness to become less absorbed as you begin to arise from meditation. We dedicate all of the merit, all of the positive energy from this morning's meditation and Dharma talk to world peace. May all beings without exception be completely and permanently free from all forms of emotional and physical suffering. May all beings without exception be happy, peaceful, contented, and free. And may we, as individual practitioners, make the greatest contribution we can to world peace by improving and ultimately perfecting our own minds of patient acceptance. Completely fill up your belly and lungs with air, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes and bring your meditation to an end. Welcome back, you guys. Welcome back. So, to refresh everyone's memory and to bring you up to speed a little bit, Mary Lee, we are going through the 6 perfections, which are the 6 practices of the Bodhisattva. We have gone through the perfection of giving. We have gone through the perfection of moral discipline. And with today, we will complete our discussion. Again, in this go around, I have a feeling that we'll be returning to all of the 6 perfections at some point in the future. But for this particular go around, this will be the last, our last commentary on the perfection of patience. And I just wanted to read a little bit from Joyful Path of Good Fortune. Over the last few classes in which we've been discussing the perfection of patience, I've been sort of presenting the Dharma in Jeff speak, if you will. And I thought it would be beneficial for you guys to just kind of hear more sort of proper traditional languaging with regard to the different ways that we can come to practice patience. There are 3 parts that are presented in Joyful Path of Good Fortune. The practice of the perfection of patience is divided into 3 parts. The first is the patience of not retaliating, and that's kind of pretty self-explanatory. The consequences of retaliating, tempting though it might be sometimes, the consequences of retaliating are very great and much greater than just enduring situations that we find undesirable. When we retaliate, not only do we bring harm to the object of our retaliation, but also we create huge karmic consequences for ourselves through retaliating. The second part that is addressed here is the patience of voluntarily enduring suffering. And we've talked a lot about over the last few weeks about the benefits of voluntarily enduring our suffering, as well as the lines of reasoning which might compel us to come to a place where we can voluntarily endure our suffering. Not time to refresh and review all of that right now, but I just did want to share something with you all, a thought that we didn't address. And it's really important that voluntarily enduring our suffering or patiently enduring our suffering does not necessarily preclude us from taking steps to improve our situation. And you may be reminded of this from previous meditations that I've led over the years. you can wholeheartedly accept the fact that you have a headache, and you can take medicine to relieve the pain of the headache. Those two actions are not mutually exclusive. They can be entirely complementary. It's where we get into trouble when we have not fully accepted a situation that we find undesirable and then try to take steps to improve the situation. The latter is really just trying to manipulate externalities. Really, if we try to improve a situation having not fully accepted that situation that we find undesirable, then really what we're doing is trying to manipulate and control external conditions, other people, circumstances, conditions. And we've been trying that. I think most of us have. We've been trying that for our entire lives, and we've kind of come to learn, I think, that it doesn't work, trying to control the externalities. One of the consequences of that is side effects, like we encounter a situation we find undesirable, we haven't fully accepted it, and we try to take steps to improve the situation. And funny how there are like almost always side effects, unintended side effects that come from trying to manipulate the externalities. So just really, really important to know that these teachings are not recommending that we be martyrs and subject ourselves to suffering for the sake of subjecting ourselves to suffering. Using skillful means and wisdom, we can do things to alleviate our suffering, but it all starts and stops with accepting the situation as it is. As Eckhart Tolle puts it in very simple language, accepting what is, right? Not resisting what is. So the third part presented in the practice of the perfection of patience is the patience of definitely thinking about Dharma. So there are three: the patience of not retaliating, the patience of voluntarily enduring suffering, and the third part is the patience of definitely thinking about Dharma. And over the last several classes, the third part is basically what we have been doing the whole time, is definitely thinking about Dharma, kind of using creative lines of Dharma reasoning to bring ourselves to a place where we can engage in practices of training the mind that will liberate us from suffering. And here I would invite you guys to be creative in your Dharma contemplations, and coming up with maybe your own practices. I don't pretend to have a monopoly on all of the practices that can lead to liberation from suffering. I don't even think Geshe Kelsang, the author of Joyful Path of Good Fortune, pretends to have all the answers with regard to practices that you can engage in, or that one can engage in on a consistent basis to bring about relief from suffering and ultimately permanent liberation from suffering. I think there's benefit in being creative and sort of coming up with practices and lines of reasoning that bring you to practices that can liberate you from your suffering. So, for example, this is a little bit of a refresher. You'll remember in previous classes, in our discussions about definitely thinking about Dharma, remember we talked about the fact that, spent a lot of time talking about the fact that we need to have some fundamental level of buy-in from our thinking mind. We need to have buy-in from the thinking mind in order to go to a place of being able to voluntarily accept our suffering. The thinking mind has the potential to preempt and hijack our potential to practice patient acceptance, do things like voluntarily endure our suffering. Like the thinking mind will say, yeah, what about this? And what about this? And who says that there's benefit in voluntarily enduring suffering? Like before we can get to our ultimate practices of surrendering, and before we can get to the ultimate practice of rejoicing in our trials, for me, those are kind of the two end practices in meditation on the perfection of patience. Those are the two of the end practices: surrendering to what is as a means of arriving at acceptance, and rejoicing in our trials, like taking it to the next level, not just voluntarily enduring our suffering, but rejoicing in our trials. That the thinking mind says, that's crazy. Why would anybody rejoice in their trials? We need to go back and kind of use lines of conceptual reasoning to try to secure buy-in from the thinking mind, lines of reasoning such as this is where you'll remember we talked about karma. This situation that I find undesirable is the ripening of karma. This is a fully ripened karma effect, the causes for which I created at some point in the past. It's not punishment. It's just the objective playing out of the laws of cause and effect, or actions and effect. That thinking mind is why you can let go and surrender to the practice of surrendering or rejoicing in your trials. The other line of reasoning that we talked about, a really important one, is what we refer to as dependent arising. Remember, we read from When You Greet Me, I Bow from Norman Fisher. And what dependent arising says, among other things, is this situation that has manifested in this moment, right here, right now, is the result of countless mutually dependent conditions and causes that have given rise to this situation right here and right now. There is absolutely no way that it could be any different than what it is. We kind of think that we have a tendency to think, oh, this person is disrespecting me and I need to retaliate, or I need to, do something to alleviate this suffering. And it shouldn't be this way. It should be other than what it is. The reasoning of dependent arising says that this situation that is arising in this moment is the result of a cause and a condition that's giving rise to the ripened effect. And that cause in turn resulted from causes and conditions. And those causes and conditions gave rise to the causes and conditions that are giving rise to this one instant where a person is disrespecting me. Ultimately, it expands ever outward, and we come to see that everything in the universe has assembled, so to speak, has assembled to give rise to this ripened effect in this moment that is giving rise to me experiencing mental pain as a result of a person speaking disrespectfully to me. Couldn't be any other way than what it is as a result of the infinite number of causes and conditions that have all assembled. And I'm tempted to use the word conspire, but that would suggest it's premeditated or subjective. No, it's totally objective. And it's given rise to all these causes and conditions to this one moment. It couldn't be different. It couldn't be other than what it is. Absolutely impossible. That line of reasoning will hopefully cause our thinking mind to take a break. And through that break, we can really become patient acceptance. We can really pour ourselves into the practice and become it, not just understand it, but become it, live patient acceptance. And that collectively, to my way of thinking, is the patience of definitely thinking about Dharma, is thinking about it and contemplating and remembering the teachings that we've received from great teachers of the past. So there it is, you guys. Thank you for being here. 9:02, I ran over a little bit. On Monday, we will wade into the waters of the perfection of effort, the patience of effort. So have a great day and a great weekend. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Joe.
You're most welcome. Bye, Mama San. Thanks for joining.